work on operations with linear measurements. So adding and subtracting, multiplying and dividing of customary units. This is stuff, as you can tell, you have done in lower grades. Most of the time we're doing 8th grade math stuff. That's why when we do the online activities, we do 8th grade math. Now, we just did a 6th grade level. Okay? And I am totally skipping the unit on time. That was in 3rd grade. And I think the majority of you understand time. So we're totally skipping that, but you're going to be tested on it. So if you are one of those kids who's like, I didn't get time, Mrs. Miller. I didn't understand what I did in 3rd grade or 4th grade or 5th grade or 6th grade or 7th grade or 8th grade, then you better come and see me on your own time to get help on time. Because I'm not going to go over time when 95% of you are at 100% on your times because you understand it. This stuff should be easy as well. When we add, subtract, multiply, or divide customary units, we have to do units to units. So we can't divide inches by feet. So we can't have a measurement in inches and a measurement in feet and do any kind of adding, subtracting, multiplying, or dividing with it. You have to have the same. So we have to compare apples to apples and oranges to oranges. So when you add or subtract units of measure, you line up the like units. So you add feet to feet, you add inches to inches, you add miles to miles, you add yards to yards. You don't add miles to yards. They're not the same. Okay? And then you will have to simplify your answer. Before you subtract, there will be times when you have to borrow. The one example we're going to do is a 5 inches minus 8 inches. You would get a negative number if you just subtracted those, correct? There are no negative numbers when you're measuring. So it has 3 feet, 5 inches, and 2 feet, 8 inches. You're going to borrow 12 inches from the feet, correct? So you have to borrow what there is in that measurement for the other measurement. So you can't go, I'm going to borrow 1 inch from this foot. You have to borrow all the inches from that foot. Does that make sense to everyone? Biggest thing, key to remember, subtract and add like units. If you can remember that, you can do this. All right, so the example we're going to use is 1 yard, 5 inches, plus 2 yards, 1 foot, 10 inches. You have to show your work on these, and to show your work, you're going to reorganize it so that they line up. So set your problems up on your paper so they look like that. 1 yard, 5 inches. My 10s and my 5 don't line up, but they should have. 2 yard, 1 foot, 10 inches. Notice that I have them grouped by units. I'm only adding together the yards, I'm only adding together the feet, and I'm only adding together the inches to get my answer. So if I start on the right-hand side where we always add, how many inches do I have, Max? 15 inches. Kelly, how many feet do I have? Cameron, how many yards do I have? No. You can only add the two together. So we added 5 and 10, we got 15. We added 1 and 0, we got 1. How many yards? 3. That's how easy that is to add. Here's the part that you have to remember. Oops, you can't see that. Is that you have to simplify. How should that be simplified? Does anyone know? Garrett.
3 yards.
So Garrett says it should be 3 yards, 2 feet, and 3 inches. How many of you agree with Garrett? Put your hand in the air if you agree with Garrett. How many of you don't understand why Garrett did what he did? Okay, so here's my question to those of you who don't understand. How many inches are there in a foot? How many, KDB?
12.
So how many inches do we have?
15.
We have 15, right? So if we are to simplify that, 15, we would have how many feet? No, hold on. We're just looking at the 15 inches. If we simplified 15 inches, what would we simplify it to? 1 foot, 3 inches, right? Because there's 12 inches in a foot, and we want to make it as easy to read as possible, so we would write 1 foot, 3 inches. How many feet did we already have? So how many feet are we going to add? We're going to add 1 to give us 2 feet. So our answer should be 3 yards, 2 feet, 3 inches. Does that make sense? Those of you who are like, I didn't understand what he did, you're good now? You understand how to simplify? So simplified, here's our answer. 3 yards, 2 feet, 3 inches. Perfect. Okay? Our next example. 6 feet, 5 inches minus 2 feet, 8 inches. I want you to try this one on your piece of paper before I go over it. So the first thing you need to do is line them up. So you should align them up 6 feet, 5 inches minus 2 feet, 8 inches. Yes? Now, can we subtract 8 from 5? No, why, KDB? We get a negative number and there is no measurement that's negative. Okay, you can't have a negative measurement. So we have to borrow from our 6 feet. How many of you did that on your own when you started working the problem? Perfect, if you did. Those of you who didn't, that's okay, that's why we're going over it. So now, if we borrow from our 6 feet, how many inches are we borrowing, Cameron? We're borrowing 12 inches, so how many inches do we now have? $17, right? Because we had 5 and we added 12 more to it because we borrowed 12 inches. Like when you borrow money from me, you would have that money, okay? And then how many feet would we have, Dustin? So if we borrowed 12 inches from 6 feet, how many feet do we have?
What's 12 inches?
What is 12 inches equal to? 1 foot, right? So if we had 6 feet and I took 12 inches away from 6 feet, wouldn't I only have 5 now because I took 12 inches away from it? So I would have to rewrite my problem then as 5 feet, 17 inches minus 2 feet, 8 inches. Now can you do the math? 17 minus 8, what is it?
9.
And 5 minus 2 is? 3 feet, 9 inches. How many of you got it? How many of you got it after you were told to remember to borrow?
Well, I remember
Okay.
to borrow, I just did add 12.
How many of you are confused? Be honest. All right, Dustin, what are you confused on? What step did I lose you at? The borrowing. Okay, so in math, regular math, when you borrow and you have 12 minus 15, you can't subtract 2 from 5, right? So you borrow. And what do you borrow? How many things do you borrow? Really? Isn't it equal to 10?
Oh, yeah.
So isn't it? Isn't isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay, so this right here represents 10. Am I right?
Yeah.
Okay, so in feet and inches, we could rewrite this as what? Ooh. How many inches are in a foot? So isn't this equal to 15 inches?
I would agree with that.
Do you understand now?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it's different because you do 12 and 10.
Yeah.
That's why it seems so odd.